The opposition in Papua New Guinea believes it could still force an early sitting of Parliament to hear a vote of no confidence. The last session of Parliament ended suddenly in mid-June when the government abruptly adjourned Parliament. The opposition has questioned the actions of the Speaker in doing this as they tried to file their motion, and they got some support last week from the National Court. Our PNG correspondent Scott Waide told Don Wiseman about the latest developments.
Yesterday, lawyers for the Speaker's office and the Attorney General's office made submissions to the Supreme Court. I haven't had the opportunity to actually see the submissions on paper as yet, but this follows the ruling by the court that the opposition leader had standing to take the questions surrounding the validity of the VONC process to the courts for clarification. Now, the previous ruling also highlighted that there are precedences in previous situations similar to this one that show that any delay in the VONC is in fact not in the spirit of the Constitution, in particular Section 145. Now, the opposition leader said that the opposition's lawyers will push for a hearing sooner than the 18th, as has been said by the court. Douglas Tomoriesa, the opposition leader, feels that they would have a good chance of convincing the court to entertain an earlier date, which could lead to an earlier resumption of Parliament. But then again, that hinges on the court's decision.
How keen are they, the opposition? Because at the end of all of this process, it doesn't appear that they actually have the numbers to roll the government, or do they?
Realistically speaking, they don't have the numbers to do it. They don't have the numbers to do it. You know, as in PNG politics, they're hoping that within the final hours leading up to the vote of no confidence, people will move over. And that revolves around promises of ministries, the possibility of jobs for members of the opposition if they get into government. And that's the usual trend of things in PNG politics. And the other thing that's important to note is that the opposition is still calling for a change in leadership, and that's what they've been calling for the last 2-3 weeks, the whole month, in fact, with the shift of members from one side to the other. Now, this could indicate that they are looking for a compromise, although they're not saying it very publicly and very explicitly. But there are indications that if James Marape were to step aside, were to vacate the position of Prime Minister, and if somebody else were to take over, then they would be happy with working with the new person. Now, that again is subject to their own internal processes of recognizing that. But that's the current situation right now. That's the general feeling of some opposition members, at least. From the other members who have moved over with Rainbow Paita, former planning minister, Rainbow's also talked about looking towards that prime minister position. And he's also set up a party of his own, recruited new MPs to join, MPs who have also resigned from Pangu. So that's the situation right now.
And when this element in the opposition talks about James Marape standing down and being replaced by someone else, they have in mind Rainbow Paita.
No, they're talking about people within government ranks itself. Again, they're not saying it very clearly and very openly, but they have said that, you know, the Prime Minister needs to step aside. That's the thrust of their message right now.
For what reason specifically?
They're citing the ailing economy as one of the primary factors behind this. They're saying that the leadership is responsible for this downturn in the economy. It's responsible for practically all the ailments that the economy is suffering right now.
But Rainbow Paita was a key character in establishing most of that until the very recent past. So it doesn't cut much ice, does it, that argument?
Yeah, that's the subject of discussions on social media. That's the subject of discussions, particularly on the WhatsApp groups, which have been very active in the last 6 months since the talk of the vote of no confidence came about. So yes, it's a topic of discussion, yes.
Now, the next session of Parliament, the next regular session of Parliament is due in early September. And the way it's going, it could itself again be dominated by a threat of a vote of no confidence, couldn't it?
Yes, it will most likely be dominated by discussions around a vote of no confidence and its threat of a possible takeover by the opposition. There's also this sense of weariness among the public, feel that this thing could be easily resolved and should be resolved and put on the shelves so that the actual running of the country could happen. And there are serious concerns around fuel shortages, the state of the economy, the forex, Just yesterday's newspaper, there was something about fuel prices increasing again. So that's going to put pressure on businesses, and businesses are going to feel the pinch, especially businesses outside of Port Moresby, outside of Lae, where the ports for the fuel are. So it's going to put additional squeeze on the businesses and generally the lives of Papua New Guineans.